Hi and welcome. For those of you that are watching this in post replay, if you would like to be here live for the live stream, we are live every evening, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will sit back and we will discuss the top 5 news stories that affect you each and every night. Tonight, what we're going to be talking about is the headline is Tariff Chaos Fuels Dollar Volatility. Here's the bottom line. You and we go to the store and it's how much money do I make, and can what I make cover the increased cost of everything. We don't understand inflation. We don't understand how the dollar works. We don't understand any of that. We hear, oh, inflation is caused by too many dollars chasing too few goods. But is that true? Not necessarily. It's not really true at all. If you really want to understand inflation, which I really dove deep into understanding what inflation is today, inflation works in a couple of ways, and this is how the tariffs are affecting it. When you okay, so the simplest way to put it is this: you decide you want to buy a trinket for $1. Well, China is selling it for $1, or it converts to $1 American, right? So therefore, that conversion comes in, and you send them that dollar, and then they send you that product. Well, now they have an American dollar, but they're in China, which is the yuan. Well, they can't spend $1 against the yuan unless they take it to a bank and they convert it. If they take it to a bank and they convert it, what happens is it goes into their currency, and therefore it goes up onto the international exchange. If too many people take their dollars that we send them and exchange it for their local currency, what that does is that creates it creates this big old balloon effect within the exchange rate. So that's one way that inflation happens, is that they, instead of keeping our dollars and holding on to them, what they're doing is they're just putting it in their local currency. That is a sign that either one, they're hurting financially, or two, it means that it means that they don't have faith in the dollar. So we keep hearing about how the world is de-dollarizing America. Now, another thing that plays into the overall factor of inflation is demand at home. Okay, because when Trump does his tariffs, that means that there's less demand going out and all the demand is at home. So therefore, that inadvertently gives an artificial increase to the dollar value, because now you have the rest of the world holding dollars, and then if they want to do business in here, they have to have more dollars because they have to pay these high tariffs. Okay, so these tariffs actually strengthen the US dollar, not necessarily by giving it solidarity, like paying down our national debt, but by creating an artificial demand through an excessive tax. Okay, so the dollar's been going up and down like a roller coaster for the last couple of months, and this is why. Now, where this all gets hairy with inflation and with the dollar and with everything like that, where this all gets hairy is, okay, so normally what happens is we send that dollar over to China. That Chinese guy says, well, you know what, my currency is really not that valuable. If I buy a US Treasury bond, then my not only will my value hold, but I'll also get an interest rate on top of it. So therefore it becomes attractive. So instead of going to their bank and exchanging it, they put it in back into our treasury market, which therefore gives our government this uncontrollable, or this blank check for our budget, because we're sending dollars over there to buy products, and instead of them exchanging it, putting it on the international market to actually drive down the value of our dollar, they reinvest it back in because they're getting an interest rate, and that interest rate, or that money that they're putting into treasuries is now money that's being borrowed by the federal government to subjugate them to begin with. Do you get this toxic circle that goes on? Now, what's happening now, and part of why we will start to see inflation, is that as we decouple, now what'll happen is, instead of these people buying treasuries, this is why you're seeing the bond market go up. The bond market is a leading indicator of what's really going on, because that's one of the few things that cannot be manipulated, because they put it out at, let's say, 5%. Well, nobody wants to buy it, but they put it out at 5.5%. Now all of a sudden they've got some interest. They put it out at 5.75%. Now they've got more interest. They put it out at 6%. Now they've sold out. So now the bond market has set the price at 6%. It's based upon demand. Okay, so when demand for our bonds goes down, we're no longer sending our dollars overseas. They're now being exchanged, putting on the international market and coming back home. This is why we're seeing inflation. This is the negative, the ugly the ugly duckling in the room that is showing us what is going on with our dollar. Okay, so when the reason why this is important to know is because when you're looking at your politicians, I'll tell you a quick story about when I had my janitorial business. At first, I was like, man, I'm just worried about doing my business. Somebody calls me and says, hey, we'll market you online, we'll do good, and this is our price. I'm like, that's a decent price. And then I'm like, well, I'm not getting a return on my investment. Nobody's telling me that they're getting me from online. What's going on? And so what I ended up having to do was to educate myself on SEO, so I knew who the hustlers were and who the people were that did the were going to do good business. And because of that, I was able to find a company that would market my business online and do my SEO, build my web pages, do all that for me for a nominal fee. But because I knew what to look for and I knew how to understand what was going on, I was able to make an informed decision versus keep throwing good money after bad. Okay, so understanding this is that same thing as me understanding SEO. Not that I want to do it, not that I'm really great at it or anything else like that, but I had to understand it enough so that I could actually make an informed decision. So when you go to the polls and you start looking at electing your elected officials, you have a more informed understanding of what's going on, and you can sit there and go, okay, well, what is this guy's stance on monetary policy? Is he somebody that has the whole intention of wanting to pay off our debt? Because if we get decoupled, if we don't pay off our debt, we're toast. Okay, we are toast as a nation. That is the overall. You can't change the facts. It doesn't matter. Um, we are you stick a fork in us, we're done. Okay, so this is why it's important that if we're not actually paying off our debt, but we're reducing our actual deficit, reducing our trade deficit, bringing manufacturing back home, this is the only thing that's necessarily going to save the dollar. So what Trump is doing is ideologically correct. Okay, his intent and his ideology is in or his heart is in the right place, but doesn't mean that it's going to be successful, doesn't mean that it's going to be right, doesn't mean that things aren't going to pop off. No, this is why you heard from him during the election. Hey, things are going to be a little rough, be careful. Okay, so this is something that you as an individual should definitely consider, um as you see things play out. But we may have in order to fix it, it was so far gone that we have to destroy it and start it all over. What's up, DFH? All right, so I want to know, what do you guys think? What more information do you want to know? Because this is when we're hearing the dollar go up and the dollar go down and all this other stuff, and do you have a better understanding, and what is it you would like to know more of, so that you can make more informed decisions? Because that's just the basic mechanics of how not only trade works but currency works on the international market. It's more about demand than it is about value. And in people say that the dollar is not backed by anything. After what I learned today, I would say yes, it is backed by something. It's backed by demand. We have the most popular currency out there. Everybody wants our currency because it's secure, it's safe, it's stable. Okay, until recently, but everybody wants our currency, so therefore we have the highest demand. So therefore, not only does that make us the world reserve currency, but that also gives us the ability to have a shiny turd in the bowl. Okay, so this is when it comes to this. I'd like to know though, what would you guys like to know before we move on to the next segment?
So we had our first 0 day. In 8 days, we went 120 miles, averaging 15 miles a day. And as you can see, we walked close to a creek. You can see it right there. A little bit further down, it's a little bit deeper, and a little bit further down from that, it's much faster, much deeper. But we had to find a place where we could set up the hammock and Sam could do her thing. But as you see, there's the trail. That's how close I am. But you can tell she looks way more rested. She looks a lot better. She looks like she's got her energy back. We've both been sleeping all day. So our first 0 day was long overdue. But you can't really do a 0 day when you're doing a road walk.